Welcome to Hardware Heaven, and today we're going to be taking a look at Grid 2 from Codemasters Racing. We'll have a look at the menu, how the game is all set out in terms of storyline and multiplayer, things like that, and we'll also take a good look at some of the more interesting race aspects of the game. So the main screen on Grid 2 has an option for multiplayer and also the career mode. We've just dropped into the career mode just now.
Okay, Stu. Welcome back. Let's not waste any time.
We get a voiceover pretty much throughout the whole game. This layout here is very similar, varies from season to season. For example, we start off with that screen on the left being a little PC. Now we've got an entire wall of a screen because we're a little bit more popular. We can go in to look at our cars, various classes of cars. We can unlock them as we go, so you do different events to unlock cars. You can then change the way that they look. Drop them in and out of the garage to change them, and then obviously the better you get at the game, the faster the cars are that you unlock, or the more powerful the cars are that you unlock. So just going to have a little play about with some of the customization here, so you can change the pattern, add numbers to your car, change the sponsors, all that sort of thing. We'll come back to that in a little while, but you can even go down to changing the wheels. Once you come out of the car customizations, you can go across to the right hand side and enter the game options. All pretty much standard. And you start off with driver details, your statistics from your career, looking at what you've done in different events, online and offline. We've got access to RaceNet, which is Codemasters' online community. It's not turned on in the review code at the moment, so we'll just drop back out of that. And then the options, you can change the controls, so you can use 360 controllers, you can use steering wheels, you've got vibration and feedback, change what you see on your screen. You can also set up various different audio options, and in terms of graphics we've got the usual Codemasters selection of ultra detail, DirectX 11 effects. You can have extreme widescreen resolutions such as 5760 by 1080, anti-aliasing, all that sort of stuff. There's even a few Intel specific settings down at the bottom of the graphics options, so you can take advantage of them if you have one of the new Intel CPUs. And in difficulty you can have easy up to say very hard. Damage level also changes depending on what you're doing, so you could have a mixture of easy with full damage, or you could have hard with visual damage only. Damage does have an impact on the game, because if you crash too much you'll basically your race is over. There's a DLC store, and then you can exit. So we'll have a quick look just now at just a little race, and then we'll drop back to the menus and see how it all fits together.
That's fourth. Top three.
So that's a little bit of racing from Grid 2. Dropping back to the menu.
Everything is in place to do just that.
We're on Season 2 at this, and you can see there's various little qualifying events, test drives, vehicle challenges. We go into the World Series, and then we can choose a car to have for this particular race. Doesn't immediately update in the garage, but we can then go and look at what design we're going to have on a vehicle. So we can have different sponsors, you can randomize them, look around the car, change the way it looks, a little bit like we saw in the menu previously, and then this will obviously be replicated in-game when we go in there.
The announcement of this season of the WSR and the new clubs joining up has given us an increase in traffic through our official website. We're seeing a lot of that coming from Europe. And looking at the comments wall, we should expect decent crowds.
So the game is all about trying to build a racing organisation, and through social media and doing well in racing, and it's a basic storyline that means everything kind of hangs together quite well. Nothing too kind of hugely interesting happens, but the idea is that you're meant to be becoming one of the best drivers in the world. So the first look at some of the kind of key components of the racing that we'll do here is this is a essentially an elimination race. And the idea behind eliminations is that we race against, say, 12 opponents, and it's not about coming first in this race right until the very end. So you can sit back in 12th, 11th, 10th, and every 20 seconds the last person in the race gets knocked out. So as long as you were, say, 11th when the 12th person gets knocked out, then you're okay, and then you work your way through the field. You could stay 3rd for the whole race if you wanted, right until the last, say, 60 seconds or so, and then you've got to pick up those last 2 places. These elimination races are quite, a little bit, I guess, violent is one of the words you could use. The other cars try and take you out, jostle for position, all that sort of stuff. But generally you're heading through a set track. This one here that we're watching just now is a live route, so live routes change the track every so often so that no one knows exactly what's coming up, and that happens in multiplayer as well as single player career mode. And then should you time your race, ideally you can go up to, say, 3rd position as we've just done just now, and then by the end of the race all that matters, as I say, is getting into that 1st position right for the last few seconds. When the final elimination happens, if you're 1st, that's it, you've won. And that's what we're going to try and do here. So we've been racing round, we got into 2nd, 4 racers left, so in 15 seconds the 4th person's going to get cut out, then we're down to 3, and we'll look to get into 1st place for that very last second or so. And one other thing is, just while we're going and doing this elimination, we'll show you a little bit of how flashback works. So that's where you make a mistake, you can rewind time and then carry on and fix that mistake.
Driving. One last push and got the win.
Child entrepreneur Patrick Callahan. The exciting brand new series has quickly captured the imagination of core U.S. motorsports fans. Question remains, can the WSR become a legitimate player in the busy marketplace of pro sports? Joining me in our final segment today, resident analyst Toby Moody. Toby, first impressions, can this organization make a long-term mark?
Well, first things first, so far WSR has been a massive hit, not just in the US, but with fans who are in touch with.
So in the last couple of sections there we saw the last minute overtake for the elimination, and then we cut into a little bit of the kind of career mode background that's going on. We've got a tie-up with ESPN in this game where they follow you through the career, talk about how the racing series is going. And then this race here, we're taking another look at a slightly different type of game. This is Overtake challenging. So in elimination, the idea was to get into 1st by the end of the race. In Overtake, we've got to overtake as many cars as possible. We start to chain points together as we go. So every time you pass someone, you get an extra 100 points for passing the next person, as long as you do it within a time frame. If you hit the side, hit another car, anything like that, then the points drop back to 100, and you're racing head to head with another single car in this type of race. So it's all about getting the most overtakes, the most chains, the most points by the end of the race to win. So we moved on now to another twist in the thing. So there's a lot of just kind of racing game in Grid 2 where you're against a kind of 12, however many other racers. This one here is just us against the clock, and it's a little example of giving you an idea how easy some of the difficulty level is. So this is set to very easy. We're doing a challenge here to win the BMW M Series, and we're going to do some pretty dodgy driving, so go off the track here. We messed up a corner back there, but you'll see through the end of the race how much time was left for us on very easy to complete the track and win the car. Obviously the higher you step up, the less time you're going to have to get things done. You've also got flashbacks as well that can help you as you go along through the racing. So you make a mistake, you just hit on the Xbox controller, it's Y, time rewinds and you can retry doing something. If you want to skip back to the elimination race, you would have seen me just have a little tap on that button just to tweak how I went round one of the corners when I messed up a little bit on the elimination race. And here we're just finishing with a little bit of random track racing. Another twist on the thing, so this is just finish the race in first place by the end of the 4 laps.
Laps left.
So we're going to take a quick look at the online aspects of Grid 2 now. There won't be a lot going on in here because this video is being recorded prior to the release, so no one's online. We have had a few online press events just in the run up to launch, just to get a feel for the different modes, which are essentially the same as playing in the career mode, just against real people. So in here you also get another very similar aspect to the single player game, which is that you can have different vehicles, you can customize them in the way that you want, and you can also unlock upgrades which you can then purchase, and the more you race, the more money you get, and the more things you can purchase, and so on. The same cars are in here that you've unlocked in single player, and of course all the different bits of paintwork and things like that that you might have had there as well if you want them. Dropping back out, we just always get a reminder of how much cash we've got there. The options are also the same as single player, so you can change the graphics and the audio and things like that, and also nip into the DLC store and get car packs and things like that that are available for the game. So going into the actual gameplay aspects, we've got various different things. You've got a mode which is for, say, kind of parties and things like that. You've got challenges across different tracks in the various areas of the world. And then you've got rival mode, which allows you to basically have set people that you're trying to compete with, and those rivals meant to give you just that little extra bit of competitiveness. So nothing much, as I say, going on here because it's pre-release. So just dipping into the very last section, that's just the main online lobby for the game, and this would obviously be filled up, or you could invite your friends when the game is released. So we're going to drop out of online mode now and show you some more game footage just as we're bringing up the conclusion. So, beginning with some of the stuff that we don't like about the game, or isn't great about the game, and just being cut off by the announcer there, so we'll start with him. And essentially the online announcer in Grid 2 isn't as bad as in some games. There are games that you buy and you just want to turn off all the kind of voice feedback from the NPCs, but this guy here is not too bad. There are a few issues with him. For example, you might get a little bit of repetitiveness as you're going, so the same thing happens and the same voice cue goes. Other times he's a little bit sarcastic, other times he states the obvious, and then there are times when he just gets things completely wrong. It's not a huge issue, but it's something that we do need to note. Those who don't like sponsors in their games are going to be driven a bit mad by Grid 2. There are various things as you're going around, like the cars with Spotify on them or various different other brands. There are races sponsored by Intel, Virgin Media, things like that. It all begins to look a bit off when you've then got Intel graphic options in your gameplay settings and things like that. So it's just one of these things that, you know, having branding in the game is not too bad, but whether you like actual real world sponsorship or not and what that means, that's a kind of personal thing. What we're also not keen on in Grid 2, and it goes for a lot of racing games as well, is the flashback feature. So it's great for a reviewer to be able to hit rewind and fix what they're doing and get through the game as quickly as possible, but for an actual gamer it's not as great, because it's essentially almost like cheating. It's the same as when we've started to move into auto-regenerative health in first-person shooters and things like that, where the old school Medipack way of things was a lot better. It gave you the more of a challenge in the game, and this is just, it's a little bit too easy. When it's not easy is online multiplayer, and that's where we don't have flashbacks, and the balance is very much in favour of anyone who doesn't crash. If you crash in online multiplayer, you are going to lose that race and you're quite possibly going to come last. If you crash, there is no coming back from it in online multiplayer unless you're racing against a whole bunch of people who are at very low level. The other thing about the game that might do with a little bit of tweaking is just where it realises corner cutting is and isn't, and where it realises it can come back from an issue. So for example, you might accidentally on a road race go slightly the wrong side of a barrier. Normally you could just drive along and cut down when the barrier ends, but the game will reset you onto the track when it didn't necessarily need to do that. For corner cutting, you might find that you feel you've hit a corner just about perfect, but the game thinks that you have gone very slightly over what it would consider corner cutting, and the way that it deals with that is it slows down the maximum speed of your car for about a few seconds and allows you to then pick up again after that. It's quite a nice way of handling it, but whether you agree with whether you've cut a corner or not, it's kind of not always the same as what the game thinks. There are a lot of good things about Grid 2 though. Nice graphically, you can see as we're driving around here, there's lots of nice smoke effects, there's good particle effects, there's nice light. Sometimes they go a little bit over the top in particles, like newspapers flying all over the city, all over the place as if it's the worst rubbish tip in the world. But the damage is really good, makes the cars look really interesting, and the damage actually has a really good impact on the game, because we've got a whole load of impact, whether it's the difference in rumble on your controller, and the way that the car handles, so you can not hit the same top speed, or it'll pull to the left, pull to the right, all sorts of different damage. And in some of the races where there's a lot of kind of throwing the car about and you've got a car that gets easily damaged, it's a case of racing really hard trying to get to the end without getting that last little bit of damage that will end your race. And that's one of the aspects that we also liked about the game, was that you might think that you're going into an endurance race and the aim is to get to first by the end of the race. That's not necessarily always the case. There's the extra endurance aspect that you've got to nurse your car to the end of the race as well, and it adds a little bit onto what you're doing. There's always loads happening in Grid 2 as well. There's loads of different types of races, live routes changing things. There's fans that you've got to win over so you can get success in the career mode, points, achievements, loads to unlock as you're going, whether that's multiplayer or single player. Just a great kind of non-stop case of throwing loads of stuff at you throughout the game, and it's really great. A lot of fun through the game as well. It's rarely frustrating. Always seems quite well balanced. The only area that we think the balance is a little bit off is in how long the seasons are. For example, the first season feels quite short, the second season is a huge jump on top of that, but overall it's a lot of fun. It's not necessarily as close to Grid 1 as we would have expected, but it is very, very much a case of being somewhere in between Grid and Dirt, which is no bad thing, because Dirt is a whole load of fun as well, and it's a game which we very much recommend. So we'll leave you with just this footage running for a moment, and yeah, pick up Grid 2. It's been a whole load of fun for us online and offline, although we did get our ass handed to us numerous times online, so it will be a case of practice, practice, practice for a whole load of people. That's our Grid 2 review. Thanks for watching. If you want to head over to our site, the link's down below, where we've got screenshots from the game, both single player and multiplayer, and extreme widescreen at 5760 by 1080 resolution. There's also a competition to win a Zotac GeForce GTX Titan to play Grid 2 on.
Come on, pal. You know you're the best driver out there. Let's show 'em why.